The Appalachian Mountains had always held a mysterious allure for me, with their rugged beauty and untamed wilderness stretching as far as the eye could see. When I decided to embark on a solo hiking trip through these ancient hills, I anticipated solitude and the chance to reconnect with nature. Little did I know, the mountains held secrets darker than the deepest ravines. I arrived at the trailhead early one crisp autumn morning, the air tinged with the scent of fallen leaves and the promise of adventure. The trail wound its way through dense forests, where sunlight filtered through the canopy in dappled patterns. The solitude was comforting at first, a welcome escape from the noise of everyday life. As the day wore on, however, a sense of unease began to gnaw at me. The woods seemed unusually quiet, devoid of the usual sounds of wildlife. Branches creaked and swayed in the breeze, casting shifting shadows that played tricks on my mind. By late afternoon, I reached a clearing with a small, dilapidated cabin nestled among the trees. The sight of it sent a chill down my spine, a relic of a bygone era, its windows boarded up and its roof sagging under the weight of years. Despite my apprehension, night was falling fast, and I decided to take shelter inside. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the faint scent of mildew. Cobwebs hung in the corners, and the floorboards creaked ominously underfoot. I lit a small fire in the hearth, its feeble glow barely penetrating the darkness that seemed to press in from all sides. As I settled down for the night, exhaustion overcame my fear, and sleep claimed me quickly. But my dreams were troubled, filled with whispers that echoed through the cabin walls and the sensation of unseen eyes watching me from the shadows. I awoke abruptly to a sound, a soft, rhythmic tapping that echoed through the cabin like a heartbeat. My heart pounded in my chest as I strained to listen, the fire having burned down to glowing embers. The tapping grew louder, closer, until it seemed to be coming from just outside the cabin door. With trembling hands, I reached for my flashlight and cautiously approached the door. The tapping continued, each tap sending a jolt of fear through my body. I hesitated, my mind racing with thoughts of bears or other wildlife that might roam these mountains. Summoning my courage, I flung open the door and aimed the flashlight into the darkness. At first, I saw nothing but the swaying branches and the inky blackness beyond, and then, illuminated in the beam of light, stood a figure, a silhouette against the night, its features obscured by a tattered cloak. Frozen in terror, I could only stare as the figure raised a hand and pointed into the depths of the forest. Its voice, barely a whisper on the wind, spoke words that chilled me to the core. Leave this place, before it claims you too. Without waiting for a second invitation, I slammed the door shut and bolted it, my heart pounding in my ears. I gathered my belongings in a frenzy, heedless of the noise I made in my haste. The cabin seemed to groan and shudder around me, as if protesting my departure. I fled into the night, the figure's words echoing in my mind with each frantic step. Branches clawed at my clothes. Roots threatened to trip me. But I pushed forward, driven by fear and the overwhelming need to escape the cabin and its haunting inhabitant. As I ran, the forest seemed to close in around me, the trees bending and twisting in unnatural shapes. Shadows danced on the periphery of my vision, and the wind carried with it a mournful wail that seemed to follow me through the woods. Hours later, I stumbled out of the forest onto the trailhead, gasping for breath and covered in sweat and dirt. The first rays of dawn painted the sky in hues of pink and gold, a stark contrast to the darkness I had just escaped. Looking back at the trail that disappeared into the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that something malevolent had watched me from the shadows of that cabin, an entity as old as the mountains themselves, warning me to stay away from places where the veil between our world and the unknown grows thin. And as I drove away from those haunted mountains, the memory of that night lingered, a reminder that some mysteries are best left undisturbed, and that the ancient Appalachian hills hold secrets darker and more terrifying than I could ever comprehend. The weeks that followed my harrowing escape from the cabin in the Appalachian Mountains were filled with restless nights and haunted thoughts. No matter how hard I tried to rationalize what had happened, the memory of the figure and its ominous warning lingered like a specter in my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had encountered something ancient and otherworldly that night, a guardian or a sentinel warning trespassers away from forgotten secrets buried deep within the mountains. Friends and family brushed off my story as a product of fatigue and overactive imagination, but I knew what I had seen and heard was real. Despite my lingering unease, life eventually settled back into its usual rhythm, but the call of the mountains was persistent, and curiosity gnawed at me like an itch I couldn't scratch. I needed answers, closure to the inexplicable events that had unfolded in that desolate cabin. Driven by an unshakable resolve, I decided to return to the Appalachian Mountains, this time with a group of friends. Together, we planned a weekend hiking trip with the intention of revisiting the trailhead and the clearing where the cabin stood. As we hiked deeper into the familiar terrain, my anxiety grew with each passing mile. The forest seemed quieter than I remembered, as if holding its breath in anticipation of our return. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the forest floor. By the time we reached the clearing, darkness had descended, and the air was thick with tension. The cabin loomed before us, a silent sentinel against the backdrop of towering trees. Its windows remained boarded up, a testament to its long abandonment. Gathering around a newly kindled fire, we shared nervous laughter and uneasy glances. I hesitated to recount my previous encounter, wary of the skepticism it might invite. But as the night wore on and the fire crackled, I found myself unable to keep silent. I told them everything: the tapping at the door, the figure in the darkness, and the haunting words that still echoed in my mind. My friends listened intently, their expressions ranging from concern to disbelief. But beneath their doubts, I sensed a flicker of unease, a recognition that there was more to this place than met the eye. As midnight approached, a chill wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing our fire with a whispering sigh. The forest around us seemed to hold its breath, the night alive with the sound of rustling leaves and distant howls. And then, from the depths of the woods, came a sound, a soft, rhythmic tapping that sent a shiver down my spine. My friends turned as one, their eyes wide with fear as they stared into the darkness beyond the clearing. There, standing at the edge of the forest, was the figure once more, a silhouette against the night, its form indistinct and ethereal. My breath caught in my throat as it raised a hand and pointed toward the cabin, its gesture clear and unmistakable. "Leave," it whispered, the word carrying on the wind like a solemn vow. "Leave before it's too late." Without hesitation, we gathered our belongings and fled into the woods, our footsteps echoing loudly in the silent night. Branches clawed at our clothes, roots threatened to trip us, but we pressed forward, driven by fear and the urgent need to escape the looming presence that watched us from the shadows. As we reached the trailhead and the safety of our vehicles, relief washed over us like a tidal wave. The figure and its warning remained etched in our minds, a haunting reminder of the mysteries that lurked within the ancient Appalachian Mountains. To this day, I carry the memory of that night, the cabin, the figure, and the inexplicable terror that gripped us in its icy embrace. The mountains hold their secrets close, guarding them with a silent vigilance that warns wanderers and adventurers alike to tread carefully in their untamed wilderness. And though I may never fully understand what dwells within those dark woods, I know one thing for certain: The Appalachian Mountains are a place where reality and the supernatural blur, where ancient spirits linger and the veil between worlds grows thin. Months passed since our unsettling encounter in the Appalachian Mountains, yet the memory of that night continued to haunt me like a persistent shadow. I found myself drawn back to the cabin in my dreams, the figure's warning echoing in my mind with chilling clarity. Determined to find answers and put my fears to rest, I began researching local folklore and legends surrounding the area. Stories whispered of a spirit guardian tasked with protecting the mountains and its secrets from intruders who dared to trespass. Armed with newfound knowledge and a resolve forged from curiosity and apprehension, I returned once more to the Appalachian Mountains, this time alone. The trailhead greeted me with its familiar silence, the air heavy with the scent of pine and anticipation. As I hiked deeper into the wilderness, the woods seemed to watch me with a watchful gaze, the trees whispering secrets carried on the wind. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched like specters across the forest floor. Hours passed in solitude as I retraced our previous journey, my footsteps echoing in the silence. The clearing appeared before me, bathed in the soft light of dusk. The cabin stood weathered and stoic, its presence a silent testament to the mysteries that lay within its walls. Gathering my courage, I approached the cabin cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest. The door creaked open at my touch, revealing the interior cloaked in shadows and dust. Cobwebs hung like delicate lace, and the floorboards groaned underfoot. I stepped inside, the air thick with a palpable energy that prickled my skin. The cabin seemed frozen in time, its walls whispering secrets of days long past. I lit a small fire in the hearth, its flickering flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. As I sat before the fire, enveloped in the cabin's eerie embrace, a sense of unease settled over me. The tapping sound echoed faintly in the distance, a haunting reminder of the night that had changed everything. And then, from the corner of my eye, I saw movement, a shadow flitting across the room, its form indistinct and fleeting. My pulse quickened as I turned, expecting to confront the figure that had haunted my dreams. But instead of fear, a sense of calm washed over me. The figure stood before me, its presence ethereal yet comforting. It raised a hand, its gesture gentle and reassuring. "Seeker of truth," it whispered, its voice echoing with the wisdom of ages. "You have journeyed far to uncover the secrets of these mountains. Know that not all who wander here are lost, but not all who seek will find what they expect." I listened intently, my mind racing with questions. The figure spoke of guardianship and ancient pacts, of a balance maintained between the natural world and the supernatural forces that dwelled within. As dawn broke over the mountains, casting a golden glow through the cabin windows, the figure began to fade like morning mist. Its final words lingered in the air, a promise and a warning wrapped in one. "Remember this place," it whispered, its voice fading into the wind. "Respect the boundaries that guard its secrets, for the mountains have endured long before you and will endure long after." And with that, the figure vanished, leaving me alone in the cabin with a sense of peace and understanding. I emerged from the mountains changed, carrying with me the knowledge that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, but respected and honored. To this day, I cherish the memory of my journey into the Appalachian Mountains, the cabin, the figure, and the profound wisdom imparted to me in that solitary place. The mountains continue to whisper their secrets to those who listen, a testament to the enduring power of nature and the unseen forces that shape our world. The end. If you enjoyed, make sure you like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel.